Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Elbow Nudge podcast. This is episode 14, and I'm here with my good friend Caroline.
Yeah.
Caroline, today we saw Interstellar, literally, because you told me you watched it today, and so did I.
I'm fresh off of it. Yeah.
Yeah, we're hot off the heels once again.
Oh, yeah.
So this movie couldn't get any more clearer in our memory since we
Yep.
just saw it.
Yep.
And this is right off of our 2001 A Space Odyssey
True.
viewing.
Yeah. It,
So, yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, it hasn't even been like typically we see our movies within a week's time, but it's been less than that for our viewing of 2001 to now. And that's really cool because a lot of that 2001 style was in the back of my mind pretty fresh from watching Interstellar. And I think that that enhanced the experience a little bit. Not that I recommend anybody to watch 2001 and then watch Interstellar, but it was neat to see the origin of some of these visuals and uh, things like that before watching Interstellar.
Yeah, you get to see like certain scenes where Christopher Nolan kind of plucked from 2001.
Exactly. Exactly. It was neat to kind of make those connections.
But yeah, during the episode, I think we just had our own inspiration to see Interstellar because we brought it up, all these things that were inspired by this one movie. And yeah, I figured we pull the trigger on that because it's another Christopher Nolan movie. It's a big movie when it came out. I think it's still pretty big. And I think there's a lot to talk about it.
Oh, most definitely. I did not realize how much of a gem I was sleeping on by not seeing this film. It is absolutely incredible. I mean, wow. I had no idea that something like this, like, obviously, I understand that Christopher Nolan is a great filmmaker. I love Inception, the Batman movies, and Tenet was okay. It wasn't a terrible film. I didn't feel like I wasted my time. It was still enjoyable to watch.
I feel
But
like I did.
that's another episode, maybe. But, Interstellar, you know, when I think in the podcast last week, I'm just going to come right off the bat and say it. In the episode last week, you were like, "Oh, I'm always fighting, like in my mind, if Inception or Interstellar is better, and I always choose Interstellar." I completely get that now. Interstellar is my favorite of the Nolan movies. It's
All
so
right,
good.
good. Good to
Yeah,
hear that.
just coming right out the bat with it. It's so good. I am so happy to have seen it. It was so amazing. Like, I, do I just jump to? I'm going to talk about not
Of
the
course.
end,
Go
but my
ahead. Go
opinion
ahead. What do
about
you
the
want to
end.
bring
Okay.
up?
Okay. I love the ending. I love the ending
What
so much.
specifically? Is it the brand part
I'm,
or is
I'm going
it?
to keep it vague just for the first couple of minutes because I don't want people who haven't seen it to immediately click away and be
I'm sure
like,
everyone who's seen it is listening right now. I don't think that's the
just,
thing. We spoke about this. I
just,
don't know if people are being convinced to watch this after hearing it.
I don't know because like, I think about like, well, I'm thinking about Josh. Maybe Josh has seen it. I don't know. We haven't spoken about it, but like my parents haven't seen this film. And like, I don't know if Carl has seen it. But okay, I'm just going to jump into it, guys. I'm sorry if you haven't seen it and I'm about to kind of spoil, but I'll keep it semi vague for now because it's not like anything plot wise, but I love that it has kind of a happy ending question mark
Interesting.
with
Okay.
hope. I just feel like just the way Inception ended, it left that question. Inception is like, is it in the dream? The top is still spinning and it cuts away before it could drop or not drop. Like it's that question of is he really in reality or is it in the dream and whatever. But in Interstellar, no, it is like it's hope. It's not. I feel like other movies that I have seen which do this typically leave humanity in like this foreboding sense of, I don't know, like just something ominous, or it's like, oh, that was kind of a bittersweet ending. But in this movie, it's like, no, humanity made it. They figured it out. They are thriving. And now it's just about like Cooper's like his own personal mission. Like he was never satisfied with just staying on that farm. So he's gonna like take up the flight again and go and find Brand. And so I don't know. I just thought that that ending was so like hopeful, and it was a happy. It was one of the happiest endings I've seen in a Nolan film.
What about Batman Begins when he began? And then you got two more movies.
I mean, we got two more movies, but I mean, Dark Knight Rises has a pretty happy ending.
It is. Actually, I
Yeah.
just thought about it.
Dark Knight Rises has a pretty happy ending. And Anne Hathaway is involved
But that's a
somehow.
Christopher Nolan thing. He likes to bring back actors that he's enjoyed
Oh
working
yeah.
with. So
Michael
you could
Caine.
tell. Yeah, Michael
Yeah.
Caine.
Michael Caine.
Who else was
And
in it?
Anne Hathaway. You know, I'm trying to think of who else that's in a that's in a Nolan movie, but I can't think of it. I was really surprised to see a lot of I went into this movie with no knowledge, not even like IMDb, like just I went in and nothing, no lookups, nada. And I was so surprised to see what actors came out in this film.
Yeah.
Like Timothy Chalamet, I think my first remark was, "Is that Timothy Chalamet?" And he plays a young Tom, the son.
I saw Dune
Yeah.
twice.
Uh-huh.
And then when I saw him, and I already saw Interstellar, I think I've seen it twice before watching it today. And after seeing it again, didn't recognize him at all. And then when I go on IMDb, I'm like, wait, Timothy Chalamet? Wait, what?
I didn't register that was Timothy Chalamet until I had to hit pause at the one of the beginning parts of the film, and the X-ray, I rented it on Amazon. So like the Amazon X-ray, like when it shows,
Yeah, it tells you.
it told me, it was like Tom, Timothy Chalamet. And I was like, that's Timothy Chalamet? And when Cooper and Tom were having like their, what was it, like their talk about like their end talk before Cooper leaves, I was having flashbacks to like, you'll be exactly who I need you to be. My son. I was like, Paul?
Yeah.
Leto? Atreides?
Can I use your truck? You mean your truck?
You mean your truck?
Yeah.
I was like, this is like the Atreides talk all over again.
That's where they got it from.
This is before.
Interstellar. So,
but, uh-huh.
Yeah, the ending. I was gonna ask you more about the ending because you see it as hopeful, and it is. But I want to ask also, do you think Murph was telling her dad to go back for Brand out of some sort of love connection, or just to go back because she knows that he likes, he's on his own mission to. He likes flying. He likes seeing what's beyond. Like he literally says it himself. Like he doesn't want to come back and try to bring things back to how they were or see things how they were. He wants to see where we are going forward.
Yeah,
I don't think he could. He doesn't like.
He's
settling.
He's always saying like we're explorers.
Yeah, pioneers. We weren't here to.
Yeah.
What
I keep
was
thinking
it?
of that like Moana song. We are explorers. Like,
Oh, I bet Cooper loved Moana.
away,
He's like,
away.
yes, finally they get
Someone
me.
gets it. Like how far I'll go
She
speaks
gets
his
it.
soul.
I will travel multiple dimensions. Yes, Moana gets it.
We are explorers seeking ways to find Brand's little base at the edge
So
of
what do you think?
space.
Because I feel like for a second the message was to go find Brand because of some sort of love connection. They kind of almost made it feel that way.
I feel like at
But
the
that
beginning,
doesn't make sense.
yeah, no. So at first I thought like the way he was talking to her and stuff, like maybe he was getting a little flirty, but all pretenses were dropped once they were in the air. I didn't feel any kind of, and I'm usually the first to put those rose-colored goggles on and like ship and things like that, but I didn't feel that with the two of them. I think it was more of like a camaraderie, brotherhood of fellow explorers kind of thing, and just the thought that like, because like the way that even though Dr. Matt Damon, like the way he,
That was one of the surprises you were talking about, right?
oh yeah,
Yeah.
oh yeah, but
Can I guess the other one?
sure.
Topher Grace, was that a surprise to you?
Oh my
Was it?
God, the accuracy. There's one more too. Like there's one more.
uh,
But yeah, Topher Grace, Matt Damon, and there's one more.
I can't think of it at the moment, but yeah, Topher Grace. Since I knew Matt Damon. He was a surprise when I first saw it, so I remember him. But then seeing Topher Grace, I was like, what? It just cuts. It cuts to
I was like,
Murph
when did
driving. She looks
yeah.
over and it's Topher
I
Grace.
was like, when did Topher Grace show up?
Who's
Bruh,
he? Why is he
good to
there?
see you.
Yeah.
I love Topher Grace. But the other one for me was Casey Affleck.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I just see him as like a very normal looking dude. So
Tony, that's my Ocean's boy.
I didn't recognize him as like, I don't know, like a huge star or anything. He's just like, all right,
Well, he's a
that's a
star in
guy.
my eyes, Casey Affleck.
Yeah, of course. The star is in the eye of the beholder. Of course,
Yeah,
we know this.
yeah. But he's one of my Oceans. He's one of the 11.
Right.
And when it went from Timothy Chalamet, I like audibly gasped. I was like, Casey? Casey Affleck? You're
Yeah, when do
here?
we see that? We see that in the videos,
In
right?
the
In the
it's
messages.
when he comes up from that other, I can't remember her name, but like that tidal wave planet.
Oh,
And
Miller's Planet.
Miller, that's what it was.
Yeah.
Um, so they know that like an hour down there, 7 years on Earth, and then they encounter all this trouble, and Doyle,
Yeah.
Doyle passes.
The girly newbie.
I went full Barbosa with Doyle. I was like, swim up, hold your breath, hold your breath,
Hold your
Doyle.
breath. You can do it.
And then I had like your voice in my head where it's like Caroline, all that thousands of
Yeah.
pressure of water
It's just echoing like the
echoing in
force
my
voice.
brain. Exactly.
Thousands of gallons of
Pressure of water. And I'm over here like, swim,
Hold
hold
your
your
breath.
breath.
Hold on, you can do it. Hold on tight
Exactly.
out there. It's gonna get
Hold,
a little wet.
hold on out there. I was full I was full on shouting at my TV, and then I was like, oh crap, I can already hear him in my head.
I should have texted you because I had a feeling you were up to that scene too. I was just gonna text Caroline. Dot. That's it.
You would have caught me in my most emotional.
Let go. Just
No.
like Doyle did. Let go.
Yeah, what's so sad is that he could have made it, but
If you just held on a little longer
but not
with
only
his
that,
grip and
he
his
was
breath.
too busy looking at Anne Hathaway, like
Who isn't?
struggling.
That's
I
the
mean,
problem.
that's so true, but still, he was too busy looking at Anne Hathaway, and there's Cooper yelling like Doyle, get inside. We're gonna get her. You get inside. Like, okay, get inside.
Yeah. He literally says like, "Get inside. Tar's got her. Come on." He's like, "Okay."
Yeah,
Like it took him a little bit too long. A little bit too long to get inside.
yeah. I was
But he
like,
was looking out
Doyle.
for her. I mean, even if Tar's, he wanted to make sure he got her in all the way and made sure she didn't get left behind.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. But man, that was one of the parts that I felt. That was actually the only part where I felt that this was kind of like a contrived scene just to eliminate a character, not really any like because that death is preventable. You could have just written him to like run. It's like, oh yeah, he ran and he
right.
made it. It's perfectly capable of making it. And I just felt that was like one of the only parts where I felt like, okay, this is just Nolan like wanting to take it down until it's just Cooper and Brand left.
Oh, really? I didn't think about it that way. I
That
thought
was
the
that.
purpose of that scene was to
Hmm.
show the time dilation.
Well, yeah, I think the purpose of them going down and like coming up was to like that was still in the back of my mind, but I think the purpose, just looking back on it, I wasn't specifically thinking of that then. I was more thinking about like, oh, okay, this is Christopher Nolan's way of eliminating a character. I wasn't thinking so that way at the end it's just Brandon Cooper, but it was just more of like, okay, now we're one person down, and that was intentional. But also, it did kind of help. I don't know. It led to one of the scenes that I kind of called back on, and it was how when Brand is what's the word? Because after that mission, she's like emotionally, she's very emotional. because of Doyle's death and
Right.
how everything was. And what I like is that is he doesn't have to say anything to her like it's your fault or things like that. He gets after her, but in a sense of like, you didn't need it, you didn't need that data and stuff like that. They have a really neat kind of fight, and I felt that it was very justified. I liked it. I liked both their sides of it. Um, but she's very emotional after that, and she's very guilty. And then when they go up to like back to the Endurance, and she wants to go to Edmund's planet, that's where, and then she tells him like, because he says like, hey, no hard feelings, I was just being objective. And she's like, well, when you have to decide between like your kids and humanity's future, will you be objective then? And that was
Yeah,
one
I
of,
love that. I wrote that one down.
I loved that. I was like, ooh, ooh. And there is kind of like a callback. He is kind of objective in the end. Just
He
to be
does,
like,
yeah. Go ahead, say
yeah,
it. Yeah, I'm thinking of the
yeah.
scene. Let's see if we're thinking
Where
of the
where
same one.
they're doing the slingshot effect around the black hole, and he lets himself go so Brand can go set up the base. And
Oh, well, even before that, he
oh
tells
yeah, yeah,
her,
yeah. When he tells her like we don't
we're
have
going to
we're
use the
going
Gargantua as a
to
slingshot.
yeah, we're gonna get to Edmund's planet. We don't have the fuel to go back to Earth. And
Yeah.
he says something like it's fine or like we're gonna make it, but like basically telling her like he's not even thinking about going back to
And the
Earth
way she
now.
grabs his helmet, she's like, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Because that's
yeah,
when he made the choice. That's when he says, I'm
exactly.
not going back to Earth. Like, this is it. We're doing plan B.
Exactly. That's where, yeah, he is objective in that situation, and I really like that. First about his character and that kind of for what's the term? Uh, that yeah, I can't. My mind is all racing like that black hole.
It's a race.
It's
It's racing at the
racing.
speed of light.
Whoa.
So, all right, if you could collect your thoughts, maybe I want to go back a little bit to Miller's Planet because
Hit me.
I think that was a big turning point in the movie, or
Oh
not
yeah.
necessarily a turning point, but a huge highlight
Oh.
because I love
Oh
when they
yeah.
mentioned
If
let's
this
see,
movie was
Romley.
if this
Yeah,
movie was a roller coaster, everything up until Miller's Planet was the wind up, that duck, 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 going up. And then once you get to Miller's Planet, that roller coaster goes down, and it's like,
it's a
woo,
drop, and it never
yeah.
stops dropping. It
It
goes
never
to the
stops
other.
dropping until maybe we get to that Tesseract scene, and then it starts like looping. But
Okay,
yeah,
so
that's the
that
wind up.
scene when they're talking with Romley, Brand, and Doyle, and I think that's it. Yeah, and then Cooper's there, obviously.
Hmm.
And they're the three of them besides Cooper, they're pretty much ready to take on plan B. They're ready for that. Cooper's not. He's only plan A. And after that discussion, they decide, you know what, you're right. What's the point of this if we can't save the people back on Earth?
Hmm.
And time is a resource. I love how they say that. Time is officially a resource that we have to keep in mind, not just fuel and energy and food. It's is also time. So I love
Yeah.
how they plan out because, and this is the stuff that I want to look into more, but yeah, the closer you get to a giant mass in space, whether it's a planet or a black hole or a star, the slower time, I mean the slower time moves because it's dilating time. So they decide, well, Romley does the math, 1 hour on Miller's planet is 7 years back on Earth. So that's when they plan, all right, we'll go all the way around to the outer side of the planet so that we won't get pulled in by that gravitational time dilation. And they're like, all right, that's perfect. Drop in, come out. And yeah, I guess it is a turning point, or I guess it is like the big punch in the gut because I think the whole purpose of that scene was, well, of course, it's like a great action and special effects scene, seeing a huge tidal wave and watching how TARS could just roll out into a superhero to save
Yeah,
Brand.
that so cool. So cool.
But the main purpose I think was to set up that they kind of failed. They failed their mission of just drop in and come back out, drop in, drop out. And then
Hmm.
also to show us the years of messages that go by
Oh,
with his son and then eventually his daughter, and they lost 23 years being on that planet. Even
moment
though they
I
were there
cried.
for
Number one. Yeah.
I didn't look it up. I'm gonna check right now. View 23.
I think it was 23.
Oh, I know it's definitely 23, but
Are
let's
you
see.
into the
Like,
math?
yeah, they were there about 3 hours. 3 hours on Earth. I mean, on Miller's
On
planet.
Miller's planet. Yeah,
Yeah,
you're
on
right.
Miller's planet.
3.3.
So yeah, and I feel like that's what set up time is so valuable in this movie.
So
And
valuable.
yeah, what did you think of that scene? The scene where Cooper is watching his all his archived messages for 23 years.
Tony, I bawled my eyes out. Like, oh my goodness. When Matthew McConaughey, I don't know how, did he get an Oscar for this
No
movie?
idea. No idea.
He should, because every emotion he was feeling, I was feeling in that scene. Like, he is, I was a wreck. I had tissues next to me. I had my trash can in front of me, and I was just and throwing them away. I was a mess. Um, Even the way that older Tom, like now adult Tom, says, like, Lois says that I just, make these videos because I can't let you go, and I think it's time that I let you go. Especially when you see how much loss he has endured without his dad being there. And then the thought that maybe his dad is like one of the people, because he says the line of like grandpa died and we buried him like next to mom's grave and Jesse, which is his son's grave. And then he goes, that's where we would bury you if we know where you are. Like he already thinks that his dad is dead. And just like Cooper seeing his son go through that is, and then me like seeing this is, it was so heartbreaking, but like, wow. Just
Yeah, and can you blame him? Because he
no,
brings it up in the
no.
last message where he says,
Yeah.
I don't know if these messages are just going out into the vast like darkness of nothingness if nobody's getting this. And imagine doing that for 23 years. He didn't send the message
23
like
years.
every month or every year or anything, but he kept up somewhat regularly until his wife finally tells him, "Hey, he's probably dead and you have to learn to accept that and you're probably sending
Yeah,
messages to no one." And that's something that he has to accept, you know?
exactly. Exactly. And even like the look on his face, we're going to jump again to the end, but the look
Yeah.
on his face when Murph comes out of the house after like her and Topher Grace are taking his family and he shows up in his like Jeep or whatever and she comes out with the watch and she's like, you know, it was dad, like he didn't leave us, he didn't abandon us, and she gave him a hug. This was the only research I did for the film afterwards, like while I was waiting for you, was I wanted to look up like his fate. I wanted to know what happened to him because I just felt that he was so uh waiting out for his dad that I kind of wanted like to see his fate, but there was nothing on it. I did see a lot of Reddit opinions.
Theories.
Yeah, like just like, oh, I don't know if he left, like he probably didn't leave, or he looked like he was angry. He looked like he wanted to like to punch someone or things like that. I didn't get that when I saw the scene. When she came out running out of the house and she was like, and she was holding the watch and she was telling him like, dad didn't abandon us, and she gave him that hug. He almost like his eyes, at least his face, maybe I was reading too much into it. I was all hyped on emotions, but he even looked like he believed what she said, that his messages were not just going into like the void, that his dad is out there somewhere and alive and things like that, because how else would he send like this message back?
Now that part, it was a little messy. And first of all, I want to mention that scene was kind of hilarious because he's coming back from putting out the fire that they started, and
Topher
then when he
Grace is
pulls up,
freaking out.
Topher Grace is there
Yeah, he's got the
in the
tire
background,
iron.
standing with a tire iron, and that
Yep.
looks hilarious.
Oh
He's just
yeah.
waiting there with a tire iron.
Like, just you try something, punk.
Yeah, and then Murph comes out like he he heard us, his dad, and that whole scene, even rewatching it, I think this is my third time now. I still don't really know what gives her the impression that it's her dad. Maybe it's something that it's like Murph was trying to explain like love that goes beyond space and time, probably that. But outside of that, there's really no reason for her to think that it's her dad. And I'm
Other
trying
than
to see. I was looking for it this time around, and I didn't really catch it.
I was picking up on it. He was using Morse code. He was using binary because that's what they talked about in the beginning of the movie, like Morse code, binary, and then
Yeah,
even like
but the ghost before it was him, the ghost used uh binary while he was still there in the house with her, like a living person with her. So it was still a separate entity or whatever while Cooper was still there before he even left. So I'm not sure why she would think it's him.
the watch, maybe like by putting the message in the watch because that's his watch.
Now, that's one of the things I looked up really quick because I had to figure out if I missed it on my viewings or if it's something that they kept a secret. But do you know what message he put in the watch?
He put the data for the black hole in the watch.
Yeah, do they say that in the movie and I missed it, or was it just like
Yeah, he
did
tells
they
Tars,
kind
he's
of?
like, Tars, translate the data into Morse code.
Oh, okay, because I know he says that for the location, like the
Yeah, yeah.
GPS location
He
for
was like,
NASA. Yeah.
turn the NASA location into binary.
Okay.
And then when it comes to like, he figures out the watch, he goes, Tars, turn the black hole data into Morse code. And then he starts like, deet, 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 deet,
I
deet.
really like that, and that's got to be like so many
So
pages
many
long of
dots.
data. Yeah, so
Yeah,
many dots.
so many. I was like, dot, 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 dot.
Yeah.
Stop.
Don't
I
worry,
only
we have 6 hours to decompile
we
this.
have all day.
Yeah.
I
Literally,
only
time
know
means nothing anymore.
I know. I only know SOS and Morse code.
Yeah, I mean, for many people, that's the only thing you need.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really all you need. Yeah.
Nowadays, yeah, that's all you need.
Yeah.
But but yeah, that was wow. Tars is the MVP. I love Tars and Case. I love the robots so much. You know, I'm a robot lover. I am immediately drawn to
Right.
robot characters in any film.
Of course.
Tars and Case are my favorites. Tars specifically with his.
You
That
didn't
was
like
like
Kip and how he
Kip
blows
was
up?
poor Kip.
Yeah.
Poor Kip. Kip didn't deserve that. I felt bad for Kip.
Justice for Kip.
Justice for Kip. But Tars, Case was the more like we didn't see much of Case. I thought Case was Tars until they started calling him Case. I was like, why are they calling Tars? Oh, okay. I
That
see
happened
it.
to me on my first viewing too. But you also
Yeah.
see the names right on
That was
their
exactly
face.
it. Yep,
Yeah, their
their
faceplate.
names. I was like, why are
Mhm.
they calling? Oh, they have two.
Yeah.
But I love Tars. His I love that they gave them normal voices. I thought that was really neat. They didn't give them howls, monotone,
Yeah. It had
like
proper inflection and
proper
emotion.
inflection. He was funny. I was like, I have a humor setting. And he was like, why don't we put that down to 75?
Yeah, it was set to 100
It's
when
set to
we first
100.
had him.
And
Yeah.
honesty, 90%.
Yeah.
We got to operate on a 90% honesty on this podcast.
Always. Always do. Where do you keep it as usually?
I keep my honesty at 100%, muchacho.
Really? No, you don't.
You mean you don't?
I know you don't. You've told me your opinions off air.
Are you? Aka, excuse you?
I keep it at a strong 90. You keep it at around 65%. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Hey, listeners, whatever he's saying, just completely disregard it. That's not true at all. I'm always 100% with you guys. You know that. Come on.
I approve this message. All right, let's move on. Also, before we move away from this area of the conversation, I do want to bring up that since we mentioned Kip and Miller's Planet, I want to bring up a little bit of the background of the movie
Oh, please.
because I was listening to, well, first of all, before I even saw the movie on my rewatch for this episode, I was going back on YouTube and rewatching videos of like Adam Savage and Neil deGrasse Tyson like give their opinions on the movies because when this came out, it kind of made a splash with that, with like science YouTubers and even people like minor celebrities like Adam Savage or however you want to call them. I'm not saying they're minor celebrities, but like bigger names.
Right.
Um, because this movie is based on a scientific foundation as strongly as they could. They kept to a scientific foundation. And yeah, I was rewatching these videos to hear their opinions. It was very interesting. And yeah, in one of them, Neil deGrasse Tyson mentions that there's a book called The Science of Interstellar. So it explains
Ooh,
how and why all of these things were happening, why they chose certain time frames and years and distances and things like that. Everything that happens in the movie was very closely calculated, and it was based on our reality of science as closely as they could.
I love
And
that.
yeah, so I thought, oh, I want to look into this book and see what kind of interesting facts I could find. And I found the audiobook. It's free on Hoopla, so I borrowed it and I was listening to it. I heard about 25% of it, but in the beginning, it's written by Kip Thorne. And I don't know if
Oh,
that name
he
sounds
was,
familiar to you
yeah,
because
he was
yeah.
the physicist and doctor that they consulted to make this
Yeah, he
film.
was the advisor, but not only that, he was the main reason that this movie exists, along with Linda, I don't even know I don't know how to pronounce her name, but Obst. She's a
Obst.
producer on the movie. You'll see her name in the credits too. And at the time, this movie was an idea and in the workings for years, years and years before it came out because they met working on Contact. You remember that movie?
That's another McConaughey film, isn't it?
Mm, not that I know of. I don't know. I haven't seen the movie, but I just know it's another one
I'm
of those
Googling.
big sci-fi movies.
I'm Googling it.
Okay. So yeah, Linda and Kip, they met working on that movie and they got together. I don't know if they're still together or what their status is right now, but yeah, I think they were married for a while and they had the idea for Interstellar. And Kip's idea, Linda is mostly a producer and she's worked in films for a long time. But Kip, he's a scientist and I think he worked on Contact for the same reason, being an advisor to what could be done in science and to show in a science fiction movie. So he had this idea to make a blockbuster sci-fi movie, but as grounded in reality as they could. And I want to read you because he mentioned two rules that he wanted in Interstellar. And the first one is nothing in the film will violate firmly established laws of physics or our firmly established knowledge of the universe. That's one. The second one is speculations, often wild, about ill understood physical laws and the universe will spring from real science, from ideas that at least some respectable scientists regard as possible. So basically, any science shown in the movie that is possible has to be based on reality. And anytime they're going into the fiction realm of it, it has to have some base in reality and has to be at least theoretically possible from our understanding right now.
Wow.
Which, yeah, so
Wow.
it's it's amazing just in that regard. And yeah, it had quite a history. I don't want to give the whole breakdown, but just to fast forward a little bit to until we get to Christopher Nolan, because originally Steven Spielberg was signed on to do this. He was ready
Wow.
to take it on and direct his movie. And it was being written by Jonathan Nolan, so Chris's brother. And Jonathan Nolan was writing it for a long time, but then he had like other responsibilities and other family matters he had to get throughout the years, and eventually he kind of had to drop out. But he did three drafts of the script before he had to pass it on, and then Steven Spielberg he had to drop it because him and I forgot his I forgot his production studio or whatever, but they couldn't come to an agreement on the on like how to go forward with making the movie, so he dropped out. And then they finally got Christopher Nolan. And Christopher Nolan, he went over the script that his brother wrote. He did some rewrites, but it's still basically his brother's, foundation and writing. And yeah, everyone who came on board, like starting with Steven Spielberg, starting with Jonathan, and then eventually with Matthew McConaughey and Anne Hathaway, like they were all so interested and on board with this idea. Like they would email and meet up with Kip Thorne a lot. Like they really wanted to understand, like, oh, is this possible? Is that possible? Like how would this work or that work? Like they were really invested in the science. And Christopher Nolan as well. And he wanted to do some grand things. Like a lot of the things that happened in here were because he was kind of pushing for it. And one example that he brought up in the book was Christopher Nolan was very adamant on the idea that on Miller's planet, 1 hour equals 7 years. And then Kip was like, I don't know if we can make that possible. That's just like too big of a ratio. And then Christopher Nolan really wanted that. He said, no, we got to do it. It's got to be like that. And he's like, all right. So he said he went home. Kip went home, thought it over, and then he like broke down how fast uh Gargantua would have to be spinning, how close Muller's planet would have to be to Gargantua, so that it could actually equal out roughly to 1 hour on this planet being 7 years on Earth. So
Wow.
yeah, so
Wow.
things like that are an example of how
Wow.
closely they wanted this to resemble it
Actual
being possible
science.
in real life. Yeah. Yeah.
This reminded that like that aspect was something that I was kind of spoiled into the film just because when I Googled Interstellar initially, it said like one of the first articles that popped up is like the scientific accuracy of Interstellar. And so I was already like, okay, is this movie going to try to be like a Martian? Because I know that was one of the things in The Martian was
Right.
that they tried to base it on actual science. And so it was praised for being a somewhat scientifically accurate film. And so I was like, okay, I wonder if this is going to be also a Matt Damon in space movie. Interesting.
Another
But
Matt Damon in space movie. Yeah.
but I was like,
It has to be
okay, so
saved, by the way.
has to be saved. But
Yeah.
this Matt Damon didn't turn out so well as Martian Matt Damon.
Mm-mm.
And but so I was already going in like, and I was thinking that throughout the film, I was like, I wonder how much of this science is accurate. I wonder how much of this, like, if they're talking about the scientific accuracy, is all of this, like, what's science fiction and what's not? Like, that's what I was thinking of during some of those science scenes where they were talking about like relativity and Newton's law and Murphy's law and things like that. And it's so crazy to me realizing like from what you said how a lot of it is grounded in reality, and I love that they had that kind of adherence, like even being like, okay, if you want this to happen it has to be possible, like those rules, like we're not going to do something in the movie that is scientifically impossible. I love that they did that because there are movies that do that, they take liberties and they don't calculate it, but I do love that this film didn't like wanted to adhere to scientific laws. I think that's so cool.
Right. So, like you said, it's as real as it can be, pretty much. But then one, you can tell which events and which things that happen are
A
where
little
they
out
step
there.
further past that. So that's when we get into wormholes, which is real, but we have to do our own interpretations. And then
Right, right.
entering a black hole, as we know right now, is impossible to go inside a black hole. So for the movie, they made it possible. They went inside a black hole, but from the videos I've been listening to, the the pull and the gravity of the black hole versus the gravity right outside the event horizon is so is way too big of a gap where it's pulling way harder inside the black hole than it is right outside of it, that you would never be able to enter it, because like one side of you, or like in this case Cooper's ship, it'll be pulling way faster than the portion that's not closest to the black hole yet, and it'll basically be stretched and ripped, and you'll never really be able to enter it. But in the movie he was able to enter it, and then it brings us to the other things that they took creative liberties on, which is the fourth dimension and the fifth dimension that they mentioned.
Right. That
Now,
time dimension.
yeah. So I want to get your thoughts on that because before I hear what you think, I just want to tell you when I first saw this movie, I liked it so much, so much. And then once it got to the end, I thought, wow, that was terrible. That was terrible. That sucked. And then it is what? It just becomes a time loop. It's so weird. I don't like how that happened. And then I read up on it some more. I heard people's like theories on it and things like that. I saw it a second time. I'm like, okay, this is actually great. It's actually really good because I understand it now. And then watching it this third time, I understood exactly what they were going for. But yeah, I'll leave it right there. I want to hear what you thought about it.
Before I get into my real thoughts, this is the scene. It's our first, maybe one of our first elbow nudge septions. Do you realize that? I'm
What's
seeing
that?
the picture right now. When he's telling Murphy, don't let him leave in that scene, do you see what book? I just sent it in the chat. You see what book is next to him on
The
the bookshelf?
Willoughbys?
Yeah.
What the heck? How did you catch that?
I immediately caught that. I was like, is that the Willoughbys? And I even saw like Lowry, and that's the girl who wrote the book. That is the Willoughbys.
What?
I was like, wait.
You just
So
randomly saw it. You're watching the scene and it caught your eye?
I was watching. Yeah, I was like, I was like, that. I know that cover because I did that. I did the deep dive research onto how the
Wow.
cover looked. And
So we're a part of this in some way.
is Matthew McConaughey also our ghost?
That's it. I don't know what this means, Caroline. I just know I'm going to stay home today. That's it. I'm staying home.
Look at your watch. Do you have a analog?
Uh-oh. No, it's
Is it going?
digital.
Is it going? Oh no. I have
But
a
it's
clock.
flickering. It's flickering.
I
Let me
have a
jot this
clock in my
down.
room. Hey, my clock's not moving. Fascinating.
Hold on. It might take a couple hours. I'm going to write down the flickers.
2:40. It's 2:46 and my clock stopped at 2:44. Oh, my clock is 2 minutes behind. I'm looking at like the hands of my
This is a
clock.
time dilation we're talking about.
What's crazy is that it looks like the hands are similar to Murph's
Your
watch.
clock is actually 1 hour and 2 minutes behind from normal time.
No,
Earth time.
I'm central.
Yeah.
It's 2:40. It's 2:46.
Everything revolves around New York.
Ah,
yeah.
yeah, okay. All
Yeah.
right. The city's so nice they named it twice.
Exactly. But
Listen,
anyways,
we're
go on.
centralized. It means we're in the center. But yeah, that was something I caught. I was like, what? The Willoughbys is there. So, when I was fully engrossed in this scene, I didn't even think it was bad. I was like, whoa, this is another dimension. My only question is who's they? And when Matthew McConaughey was like, oh, there's no they, it's us. Like we did this. Somebody like ahead of time, like another civilization in the future is leaving breadcrumbs for us to follow so we could save ourselves like in the past. And that was where I was buying into it. I was like, okay, I'm picking up what you're laying down. I get this. And then he said, it's like what Brand says, love is another dimension. And I was like, you had me, movie. You almost had me. Love. That's about love.
Who needs it?
What's love got to do? Got to do with it. It's science.
So how did you feel about it by the end of this whole thing?
I was all in until he started talking about love. And then I was like, okay. I'm still like, don't get me wrong. I'm still into the movie. That's not docking any serious points, but that was the part where I felt like I don't like that. I feel like they had all these smart people behind this film and they couldn't figure out a more creative way to do this than it'd be like love. Love is another dimension. And I'm like, is it though?
I had a feeling you would bring up the love thing because it's not an uncommon thing people bring up. for this movie,
Mm,
and for I think sci-fi movies in general.
I'm
Matrix
not
is
alone
another
in
one
this.
that you brought up too.
Oh, that's
Uh,
right. That's right.
and I've seen people even compare these two movies, as in what do
How
these
st-
scenes mean, and
how
why is
strong
one
is
better than the
love?
other? Yeah, and so the love scene in Matrix doesn't bother me at all.
Oh, it bothers
Same
me.
with here in Interstellar as well.
Oh, it bothers me.
Because and I'll let you know why. And this is interesting because I usually don't like romance movies
Yeah,
and
I'm
or
the one
anything like
that
that.
does. Where typically
Yeah.
the tables are reversed. Oh, how the
But
turntables turn.
the reason I like it here is because starting with brands talk about love. And this is when they come back from Miller's planet and they have to decide which planet are they going to go to next, Edmund's or Man's planet. And she's choosing Edmund's because she loves Edmund and she would love to see him again. And they talk about this, they go over this, and we can take from that scene that she's probably blinded. She's not really making the right decision because she really just wants to see him more than just thinking about the fate of the world and future generations.
Hmm.
But I do agree, or I wouldn't even say agree, but I do at least take into consideration, and it does make me think love is interesting in a way that you can't, we don't entirely understand it. And it is very powerful, and it does transcend time and space. And you could love things that you've you've never seen before. You can love things like she said in the movie. You can love people that are dead and that are gone. You can love, like, you could feel love from people you're not next to or things you're not next to. It's very interesting. It made me think about that and how powerful it is and how there's not really a measurement or true understanding of it. And they say when Cooper says love is another dimension, I don't think he means literally. I think he means another dimension of understanding. I don't think he means as like the fifth dimension or anything. But
Okay.
but when Brand says it, I completely like turn my way of thinking on what she was saying because the first time I was watching, I felt the same way too. I'm like, that's kind of dumb. All right, so this is becoming fairy tale, like, oh, our love is gonna bring us together, or whatever. No, I feel like on top of everything I said and what she said, I think it is powerful and it's kind of like an unknown and we don't entirely understand it. But on top of that, I think it also, and just for that scene specifically, it's like a gut feeling. It's like a gut feeling that you can't explain. And now fast forwarding to Cooper in the fourth dimension, the fourth dimensional library. Um, I think he was in a Tesseract. I think they say that in the
They
movie.
call it the Tesseract. I was like,
Right.
the Infinity Stone.
So that's also, oh man, there's so much to break down. But anyways, just the love part of Cooper. Um, so you said who are they? Who are they? And they said it in the movie, and you said it yourself. It's people from the future. So if we bring it down to the reality and movies that we've seen, it's like if we have you seen like that comment or whatever, you've probably seen an image or something of people saying, "Oh, if we invented time travel, then we would have seen time travelers already." Like
Yeah.
if time travel existed, somebody would have came back and shown us that we have time travel already. So we don't really have to wait to reach that point because once you know time travel, you can time travel back and blah blah blah. Interesting concept.
Right.
That's kind of what they showed here. That's what they showed. They is those people we saw, just regular humans who would advance far enough to understand what the fourth dimension is and what the fifth dimension is. Now, I don't know what the fifth dimension is or what it looks like, but they showed us what the fourth dimension looks like, and they explain it there too, and is a really cool concept. And this is another one of those things that they, was a creative liberty, and they took it upon themselves to interpret it in a way to show it visually. But Cooper was in the fourth dimension, and the fourth dimension they used to like that's what time looks like in the fourth dimension. Time is all around him. It's not like one singular like Marvel Prime timeline where you could like jump back and forth. It's just always happening. He could go to when Murph was born if he wanted to. He could go to when Murph got married. He could go to where Murph graduated from college or when Murph did whatever. Like he could just jump around different times in life and it's just always happening. Actually, what's her name again? Brand, she mentions that when they failed on Miller's planet and they have to wait for the spaceship to drain out. And Cooper says, "Is there a way that we can use this to our advantage? Can we like go back in time?" And she says, "No,
Yeah.
we can never. You can never do that. Time always moves forward. You can't move back in time." And then she says something about the fifth dimensional people or whoever is in the fifth dimension. They could probably do it. They could probably see the past as a mountain or the future as a mountain ahead of them. That was very important because
Very
that's
important foreshadowing too.
yeah, because that's basically how nowadays from the readings that I've been doing, that's how they describe the fourth dimension and how you see time. And I imagine it like the way I first understood it is like if you imagine a Scooby-Doo hallway, where there's so many doors, and then they jump in, they run in one door, they come out another door, and then another door, and there's just so many doors in this hallway. That's how I imagine the fourth dimension and time. Like you open a door and you can see when you can see your first day at school. You can open another door and you can see when you got your driver's license. You open another door, you can see when you're hanging out with your friends or whatever. Like time is just always happening. It's not singular. So that's what they showed here. And that was part of his mission. They said that so the future people who saw how they can help the Earth, they decided, all right, we need Cooper. We need to lead him to like join NASA, do this and that, and then find the black hole, and then go in this singularity, and then we need to put him in the Tesseract so he could find the anchor point in this time because we can't find it. There's like infinite moments in time. We can't find it, but he can. He knows the anchor point, the important part that he needs to go back to and influence a decision. And then that's what he did. He made himself go back to NASA, and then he gave his daughter all the data of the singularity inside the black hole. And so it's not necessarily a loop, or you could see it as a loop, but it's not really because it doesn't even end in a loop.
It's like a paradox.
Yeah, it is a paradox. And I didn't like it at first because I thought, oh, this is just a loop. It makes no sense. It's dumb. But now it's like, that is incredible. And it's so hard
Yeah.
to wrap your mind around it. But, this is just their interpretation of how it would look like. And I thought it was incredible.
I'm having little mind blown moments just from your explanation right now.
Oh, I've been mind blown. Yeah. So look, every time I look up this movie, I get mind blown as well.
Like, where is it? This me right now. That whole time you were talking.
That's how you're listening?
That's exactly that's exactly my face.
John Cena. What do you call him? Just
Utter
I don't know how to
mind
describe
blown.
that. Mind blown John Cena.
Yeah.
GIF.
That's me. The whole time you're speaking, I was like, oh, it all makes sense.
Yeah.
I can see sound and hear colors. Amazing.
So yeah, just to wrap that up, I thought they represented the fifth dimension, fourth dimension, black holes, and Tesseract like incredibly well. And the
It's
love thing, I
even
know it could be tacky. I know is sometimes it feels weird and out of place, but in this movie, I loved it. And yeah, and for Cooper's mission, we already understood how it works for Brand, but for Cooper, they chose him because he has that love connection with Murph, and he knew exactly where to find her, what to look for, and which point would be the most influential for them to put them on track
and what
to
breadcrumbs to leave.
exactly, exactly. So that's how I feel it connected to that.
So even love is a valid method of this film. It's a resource.
I think so. I think so. And I don't know if they're trying to imply that love is a fifth dimension. They never literally say that,
They
but
never say it, but the way
no.
you put it, I think, is the best way to think about it. I was looking at this from a more objective standpoint and being like, but when you put it that way, I can see it. I can see it.
And also while I was watching it, I figured this has always been about love. The reason he's leaving Murph and his father-in-law and Tom, Donald is his father-in-law. It's because he loves them and he wants to save
Yeah.
them. You know, he's not really thinking
He,
about
he
the
wants to
entire
give them a
world.
future.
Yeah, he's thinking about his kids. You know, and
Yep.
he loves his kids. And he mentions the Earth, obviously, you got to save Earth, but it's really about his kids. And
Even Matt Damon is like, you got to stop thinking about your kids and start thinking about their like the human race.
exactly.
But he never does. He never stops thinking about his children.
But even Matt Damon, even Dr. Mann couldn't think past that. We thought he was the
Uh,
scientific,
he was
objective,
he was
reserved.
sus from the beginning. I was
When did you
suspicious
catch on? When did you catch on
when
that he
his
was?
when his robot was destroyed. I was
Oh
like,
yeah,
why you do that? Why you
yeah.
do that, man?
I think he pulled it off pretty well though.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But he
He's like, oh,
pulled
I
it
have to
off like
decommission him.
they had no reason to suspect it. But I was looking at him like I even wrote in my notes like, man is kind of sus. He's kind of sus.
But did that? I feel like they gave it away a little bit too early. Not in like a this is like a negative aspect of it. I just felt like traditionally I feel like they would have waited. That message that Murph sent to Brand saying that her dad is dead, I'm sorry, but then also you knew about this, right? This is all a sham. I feel like that message would have been played much later in a different movie by a different director. I feel like they would have played it right before Dr. Mann like pulls out the transmitter from Cooper's helmet and then they start having that fight. I feel like they would have
Hmm.
played it around there, but they kind of tip you off way before all that happens, even before they wake up Dr. Mann.
I think that I don't know. I'm trying to think of like ways that I feel like if Dr. Mann was smarter about it, my other thing too is why did he let it go on as long to where they were already setting up base and then he's like, I gotta kill him and take the endurance for myself. I would just think that from a standpoint of, okay, yes, what he did was really trying to not use strong language. What he did was really bad,
What
but
he did.
um but
You see, this is what I'm saying, 65%. I'm here keeping it at 90.
it's still 100. I'm just trying to not use strong language.
All right, go ahead.
What he did was really bad, but I just feel like when they landed and they woke him up and he was giving his explanation, he would be like, I need to tell y'all, I'm a
I'm from
coward.
Texas. I need to tell y'all.
That's McConaughey. I felt so at home every time he spoke.
Yeah, he's like, I understand this man. You didn't even have subtitles for him. I
I
bet.
didn't need him. I didn't look at
Yeah.
them one bit when he was talking. That's
Yeah.
just the way everybody talks here.
Yeah.
He's from the Valley. He's from Uvalde specifically. So that accent, perfect. But when Matt Damon is sitting there in that little blanket and he's like, I just figured that would be the time to tell him, listen, I was a coward. I set the beacon. This place is not habitable. Let's pack up and try to see if we can make it to Edmund's planet, like right now, and not kill them. Like my thing is, if you were aching for human contact, why would you kill them? I just don't
He
understand that.
wants he wants to go back to Earth and have human contact. He doesn't want just those three people.
You got him right there. Fine.
He doesn't want just three people. They're in a hopeless planet. He needed to go back. You can't live there. You can't
You
live
can't
there.
live on Earth either. The whole point was to find another place to live
Yeah, but
because
they
Earth
said
isn't
his
working.
generation, he could live there until who said it?
Oh, that Murphy's generation will be the one that
Yeah, first
suffocates.
generation will be the last one. So he's good. I'm pretty sure he was just thinking about that, thinking about himself.
I feel like that plan was not very well thought, but still. Yeah, the way that the movie kind of gave it away was pretty. Yeah, it was sudden. I feel like it would have been more. It should have been more dramatic, but it's like he just takes off that little transmitter and tosses it, and they have that little fight scene.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, okay, we're doing this now. I had my suspicions, but
Well, then we get to the real, probably the
the real.
biggest dramatic moment in the movie. At least for me, that docking scene. Come on.
Ooh.
What do you think about that? The docking scene is so famous now for the music that was being played and for what was done and how it looked, how it was shot.
I gotta say, I was tense that whole scene. Like my whole body, I was tensed up when they finally like stabilized. Just at the end of that scene, that event, I felt like a huge.
Did you finally blink and breathe?
Yes, actually, I did. I did blink. I even had to like do a deep exhale, and like my eyes were all like I was blinking. I did not blink. I was all tense, but the music was tense. And then they're so I don't understand why he wasn't listening to them. My whole thing is like how idiotic he was being.
Caroline, he's the best of us. He's an intelligent man.
Then we're doomed.
Dr. Man.
No wonder the Earth is the way it was in 2060 something. If he's the best, this is why we're failing.
He's the best of us.
He's an idiot. Because they are repeatedly telling him, like, don't do it. Don't dock. Do not dock. It's not safe. And then she even, like, Brand gets on the PA of the ship, of the Endurance, and is telling him, like, do not open that airlock. It's going to depressure. And she's explaining it, and he just, like, disregards it, shuts it off. Why would you not listen to that? Like, why would you really? They're not even telling him, like, don't leave us, don't do this. They're literally telling him things that will save his life. He's a scientist. He should know this. And I'm just sitting there like, why are you doing this, bruh? Why are you doing this?
Do you remember what your mind feels like and how your thinking process is after you've been woken up unexpectedly from a deep slumber?
He's had time. He didn't just wake up. Like, in the film,
well, just answer me that. How do you feel when you just wake up, pre-coffee, a deep slumber, and then you're asked to do some sort of task or assignment? How do you feel? How do you operate?
Not murderous, but on the verge.
Pre-coffee.
Not murderous, but I'm inching towards it. I doubt
that. Pre-coffee? As in not even an ounce. Nothing. Not even a little drop.
Oh, I'm feeling tired just thinking about it.
Exactly. How does your mind function?
They got him.
This guy's been asleep for years.
They got him a blankie.
I think that time, that morning brain fog, it probably got extended in a couple hours.
He did, you know what though? He did mention a lot, like when he was giving Cooper that little speech about your survival instinct. And how I think that's what made him that way. Even like setting off the beacon in the first place. Like he had this premeditated. He knew. And he knew that like, oh, when I activate this beacon, you know, he didn't know it was a 50-50, maybe even less than that chance that someone was going to come get him. But he knew that activating that beacon would be a way
to signal.
Yeah, to signal someone to go get him. And so he knew, like, if I set up this beacon and someone comes, I'm going to get their ship and get out. But I don't know. I just feel like when it came to that docking scene, I really liked the music. I loved the way McConaughey and Cooper and Brand were. I don't want to like just. I don't want to like just call him McConaughey and just write up because he did a great job. I have seen several Matthew McConaughey films, and I don't want to just give him the write off of like, oh, I just saw him as McConaughey. No, he did a great job acting as Cooper. So I want to give
that. You're talking about if you interchange the names.
I want to give him that respect. He did a great job as Cooper, but I loved the way they were talking to him. I loved that they weren't being frantic about it. Wait, they were in there very much right. Like even the way he's just like, he'd maroon us. It's like he is marooning us.
He is. Yes.
He is. She's like, he'd maroon us? He is. He is marooning us. Like I thought that was their dialogue is great. But even the way that they're trying to contact him, they're not frantic or over about like they're handling it very very well. Better than I would have handled it in their mission. I'd be over here like like I would be worse, but they're handling it like and they're really just trying to tell him stuff to save his life. They're not even worried about like how they're like oh this jerk we should just let him, blow up or what. Like they're not that way. They're like do not open that airlock. Do not do this. Like they're literally trying to save his life. And he is just being terco and trying to open up that airlock and like forcibly dock onto the ship, and it's just like don't do that. And also Tars MVP. The whole like also like yeah he did kind of inadvertently kill this guy, but Tars also saved Cooper and Brand's life by not letting that happen because he was ready to just leave. Like this guy was just ready to maroon them, but Tars is like, I disabled the auto docking system.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, good job, Tars. Good job.
It really was a good job though.
Good job, Tars.
That's the way that I saw it.
Yeah. I even like I think I audibly said, oh, Tars, my boy. That's my boy right there. It's Tars.
So this scene is one of my favorites. Again,
Really?
it's incredible for the music and just the maneuver that they're pulling off in space. And it's my favorite line in the movie. I love the let's match the speed of the spin. He's like, it's not possible.
Oh yeah.
No, it's necessary.
It's not. Yes.
Dun, dun, dun.
Oh, that was so
right
cool.
underneath. They're spinning at who knows how fast, but
But
Brand got knocked out. She just went blacked out unconscious.
I'd be that way. I picture that carnival ride, where they spin everybody and you're held up against the side. You're just kind of like being
Bowser, except times 10.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I thought they were doing on that ship. And he's like, "Come on, Tars."
I love it. Yeah, I love it. Come on, Tars.
Come on, Tars.
Come on, Tars. Just hanging on.
I wish I could rename my Siri. I would rename my Siri Tars in a heartbeat. I love that so much.
It was such a great scene. And of course, the explosion that happened beforehand when Dr. Man is like,
I love that you can't hear
moment.
It.
Yep. It just cuts.
And then I love that. Because there's no sound in space, right?
Yeah, no sound in space. So
I love that.
That's exactly how they shot it.
Man,
so also what came to mind.
That was a cool scene. When I completely, I was just thinking about Matt Damon's utter betrayal. I completely forgot about them docking to the Endurance. That's such a cool scene.
Yeah. Are you kidding me? I got chills. Every time I watch it, I get chills.
I got chills right now just talking about it. Goose bumps, spidey senses on.
I wanted to mention just really briefly, because since we mentioned 2001 at the beginning, there's scenes in this movie where it's kind of like 2001, where like the docking scene, or like whenever a spaceship lands, whenever the camera zooms in on the part doing the action, like when it has to clamp on, or when the landers are coming down, or when they're retracting and things like that. All those scenes, I feel like they're just like 2001, except in 2001, it took them like 2 minutes to do the whole scene.
That's putting it lightly. It took them 2 hours.
when I was describing those scenes, I was saying like, yeah, Kubrick and their visuals team, they're probably so proud of what they're showing, and it did look really nice. And I think Christopher Nolan, he was doing the same thing, but just a lot quicker. He just showed the one shot, and then it cuts away. And every time I saw it,
we have the technology for this.
Every time I saw it, I thought, yeah, if Kubrick directed this, it would have been 2 minutes of it like docking very slowly, moving in, clamping down. Yeah. Which is fine. It's two completely different styles, but that's what immediately came to mind.
Maybe I was reading too much into it, but I did catch a little nod towards the beginning when they were already in their space voyage, and they were like, "All right, Tars, you stay up here or something." And he's like, "Don't worry, I won't leave you behind." I was like,
How? How 2.0?
I was like,
What
yeah,
was
because
HAL
that's
9000? So HAL
how
10,000?
how Tars is the much more improved, empathetic
Yeah.
version of Hal. He had
Yeah.
no problem being jettisoned into the black hole. MVP Tars.
Yeah, he's like, I'm a robot, right? I just
You
have
know
to
I'm
do what you tell me.
yeah, you know I'm a robot, right? You don't have to ask me to do anything. And then,
Yeah,
wait, you're gonna launch Tars? You can't ask him to do that. He's a robot. We don't have to ask him to do anything.
exactly.
But that's like his longest companion. That was the one that was his ride or die. Like that was his companion the whole way through. He always had Tars. And Tars even survived like the
Yeah,
whole
to the end.
to the end.
Brought him
Yeah.
back.
I love the design of Tars. Even like when was it Case that like tumbleweeded to
Yep.
Bran to rescue her and the way that like their arms come out and stuff. I love that design. That's so creative. I've never seen a robot something like that, but it was great. I was like, what kind of robot? That's not very useful. But
So
then
that's what
seeing it,
Adam Savage mentions. Since, he's very, Adam Savage, right? From Mythbusters?
yes.
Okay. So, yeah, just in case anybody didn't know, he's the one that doesn't have the walrus mustache. And that's Jamie.
I was thinking
Jamie
that right
and
now. I was like, is he the walrus guy or not?
No, he's the one with the glasses.
Got it. Got it.
Adam Savage. And both of those guys were brilliant, but then after the show ended, they went their own ways. And Adam, he actually still has a YouTube channel that's doing really well, and he's just brilliant with like designs and just mechanics and things like that. And his YouTube channel focuses on builds, like different builds. So when Interstellar dropped, he gave his opinions on TARS, and I'm already forgetting the other one's name. What's his name?
Ace.
Yeah, Case. Yeah, and also Kip if you want to include Kip. But basically, they all
Yep.
have the same design, and he was holding those designs in high regard of how brilliant they are and how possible they are and how simple in design and effectively they could be used. And he was saying like those are uh robotic designs that are so smart and could be actually done in real life. And it's a very interesting conversation. I would probably have to link it to you if you're interested. But
Yes, please.
yeah, he was praising it for being just like really efficient, really beautiful, really simple. And I'm like, man, is it really? Because I'm sure it's not going to be rolling around like a tumbleweed, but all the other things like the moving joints and things like that,
Well,
it
yeah.
was
Have you
really cool.
seen like some of the stuff of robots like trying to walk, like that robotic dog? The way
Yeah.
it would like fall over and things like that, the
Boston
joints.
Dynamics or
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Boston Dynamics. But
yeah,
like even some of these other like anthropomorphic robots, how they have a lot of trouble walking and stuff, but that movement that the TARS and Case and Kip units have are like they were moving around and I there were a lot of times I felt like, is this CGI or are they actually there? Because I'm buying it. I'm buying the TARS.
yeah.
And I'm
Christopher
like,
Nolan uses no CGI. He
no,
actually filmed a black
this is
hole.
all.
Yeah.
Cut to like I heard I think I read an article a while back of Tom Cruise how he's working with NASA to write and film a space film in space. And so
Oh man,
I'm
good for
thinking of
him. I'll be
yeah,
there day one.
I'm in theaters day one IMAX, let's
Ah,
go.
that's awesome.
And so I was reading that article and I was thinking about that right now, like Tom Cruise seeing this film being written, he's like, write that down, write that down.
Nolan did use a lot of real things. Like, I'm sure he had a real robot, but when it was moving, like definitely the tumbleweed part that was CGI. But he had that whole cornfield. I read a story a long time ago, around the time the movie came out, where they actually bought that plot of land to grow those acres or however many it was of corn and stuff to actually like drive through it and burn and things like that. And then the rest, I think they donated or did something with it, but that was actually grown for the movie. And then the dust storms that they had, it was actual dust and sand and dirt that they were blowing around. And yeah, basically whenever He tries to minimize the CGI use as much as possible whenever he can.
That I love that. I love that a
Yeah,
lot. And
the
he
movies come out better for it.
what I like too is that it helps the visuals when he does use it. It helps a lot. Like it because it you're so used to I think like your mind I feel like CG and those kinds of effects have the same effect that like I'm trying to think of an analogy. But like your brain, if you see a lot of it, your brain starts writing almost everything off a CG. So you're like, okay, like this isn't like for example, like a Marvel film. You know, like when you watch like Black Panther, and you know
Hmm.
specifically that last fight can get pretty hokey, and that one is like a heavily criticized CGI fight scene. But what also doesn't help is that leading up to that fight scene too, a lot of it is CG, and so then this one just like stands out like superbly. But the opposite effect I feel works for Nolan because he uses so many shots grounded in reality that whenever he does use visual, it blends in really well with the reality. So I like that. I like when any director does that. Practical effects to me have always been loved in my heart, even down to like the Jim Henson stuff, how Jim Henson hated to use CG. He always wanted to make things either puppet, stop motion, things like that. But I love when directors try to do, even when we were talking about this with Eternals, how Chloe Zhao wanted as much of her scenes on set as possible, like even if they had to
Yeah,
go to islands and things like that. I love when directors do that. I love it.
yeah, it's a perfect blend when you could do both, right? When it's a mix
Oh,
of the real and the CGI, and
that
then
should be
they work
the
really well together.
yeah, that should be the goal for most filmmakers if they're doing a live action film. Not like animated, but if they're doing live action, that should be the goal to make it seamless.
But also in Nolan, in this movie, all the CGI shots of Miller's planet with the giant tidal wave, or the black hole, or the wormhole, all of those scenes were amazing. Just so amazing. Like the way you see, like the tidal wave, just seeing how huge it was, or the black hole, seeing how it was just bending and distorting all the light around it, or the wormhole, seeing how it was curving and bending the space around it while they were flying through it. It's when he does it right. It's amazing. It looks so good.
What I think is really interesting is how I don't know, like this movie came out in 2014 and
Right.
we got our first image, like Earth people, humans, got our first image of a black hole in
Yeah, what year was that?
20 it was before the pandemic, 2019. And you
I
know,
remember that. It was big news.
I can buy this. Like that's the black hole we see in
And then
Interstellar and the Eye of Sauron.
yeah, yeah, a little red blurry circle.
On the way to Mordor.
You know
You bet.
what? I
Think
think
about it
Chris
far
nailed it.
away. Think about it far away. Blurry scope.
Yeah.
I can see it. I can see it. You see it up close and that's what it looks like, but from far away, I can see it. Like I can see the possibilities.
I think Nolan saw it. I think
Cut
he
to
had his hands
me.
on this picture
Yeah, cut to me with that
before.
John Cena gif yet again, like the black hole.
It makes sense. How did he
Yeah.
know?
How did he know? It also just hit me how this episode we didn't even attempt to give a plot summary of this
Nah,
movie.
there's too much to cover, and we
Just
need all the time for
dove
yeah.
straight into it,
We
fresh
need
off
all
the
the time to
heels.
cover all the concepts. I was gonna ask you because I wrote down a quote, and it's another thing just to get your thoughts of while you were watching it, if anything came to mind, or your reaction while I'm reading it, because I think there's a lot in this movie that focuses around this theme. Is when they were with Dr. Mann already, they woke him up and they saw the video that it was a sham already from Murph. And then Dr. Mann tells them it was always plan B. This was always a plan. And they're talking about how they're having the dilemma and the argument of how we're leaving people on Earth to just die, and how can you do that, blah, blah, blah. And he says that empathy rarely extends beyond our line of sight. So it's always to, it's like always something personal, something, I don't know if selfish is the right word, but, it has to matter to you, and it rarely extends beyond the line of sight. So obviously he's talking about how Cooper, and I'm sure a lot of the audience, they just can't accept that everyone's purpose on Earth, and for them, these pioneers going out and finding new planets, their purpose is to die and just to start new life with those cells or whatever that they were bringing to start new life on these planets. What do you think about that whole idea? What do you think about that? About giving up, kind of like giving up what's important to you and the people you love for a better future, for a new race of humanity, or not even that specific, just, I guess, doing something for someone that you don't even know, doesn't even exist yet. Just the whole quote, that whole idea, like what came to mind with that? Because I was thinking about that for a while.
It's interesting because the I hadn't when I was in the film, I didn't really stop and think about it. But the more I give it thought, the more I understand. And if I was in that situation, just like as a knee-jerk reaction, I think at first I wouldn't agree with it. I would be like Cooper, and I would be like, no, I want to get my family safe. I want to get my loved ones safe. I don't want to save some people I don't even know in the future. But um, eventually, if I had to wrestle with it and give it time, I think I would have come to the same conclusion that a lot of these pioneers came to, where it's like, you know what? There is not going to be a future if we don't do what we have to do. So just for the sake of survival and the chance of happiness, we have to do this. Like we have to sacrifice the current for the future. But I don't know. I do like that the movie brought both perspectives into the film, and it laid us down gently with it too. It didn't just give us this thought-provoking I'm trying to think of the word. Like it didn't just give us this concept right out the gate. It set it up, gave us this gently. And then you see Cooper, that's kind of one of his arcs of the film, is he goes from having empathy for only those within his sight to having empathy for those in the future. That's kind of his character arc. And then it just so happens that he's able to have kind of a happy-ish, not so happy, but he's able to have a reunion of some kind in the future. And my reaction when I first heard it was like, no, I would completely be like Cooper. I'd be like, I'm doing this for my family. I'm not doing this for some people I don't know down the road. But the movie took me on that journey the same as it took like Cooper on. Was like, okay, yeah, eventually, like, especially when the movie also cuts back frequently to Earth, and you see how like Tom's son and his wife are suffering that like lung disease, and how people on Earth are not doing well, and really the only hope is to get them off that planet and somewhere else. So then you start like understanding and like rooting for the pioneers to succeed. So that the movie helped with that journey of that thought process a lot. So by the end of the film, I was like, yep, you're doing this for the future, man. You got this.
So then how do you feel about Dr. Mann's outlook on it, and Dr. Brand, older Dr. Brand? We're talking about, what's his name? Actor's
Yeah,
name?
yeah. Michael Caine.
Michael Caine, yeah. What do you think about his outlook now?
Both
Because
of
that was
them.
his outlook the whole time. I mean, ignoring the betrayal, ignoring that he lied, is it okay to think of just a future generation that his plan B was the only plan the whole time?
Both of them, like, basically, they all had the same goal in the end, but to me, those ends don't justify the means. If I just feel like it's funny how the movie presented the same concept, but we were rooting for one character and not other characters, even though they had the same goal. You know what I mean? And it's because of those things. It's because Dr. Mann betrayed his fellow crewmates. It's because of how Dr. Brand lied to like the astronauts that paint that bad picture where I feel like if it was a little more selfless, a little bit more upfront and true, empathy does rely, like there's truth to the statement that empathy extends to your line of sight. And so therefore, you should that just because you're trying to work towards the future doesn't mean you disregard everything in the present. And it doesn't mean that you disregard who is around you and their emotions and their feelings and what's important to them. Empathy should extend to both. To where, yes, like that's why I liked the initial presentation of it. This is plan A. Like, yes, we're going to try for this, but this is plan B. And I think that it would have worked better if it's like plan A has like 40% chance of succeeding, whereas plan B has 100. So you're really like, you're going to have to like resort to plan B if this small chance plan fails. But it's better. Like, we understand we are trying to like save this place. So you should go for it either way. Like 40% is better than 0%. Like that's my way of looking at it is like, even though like he should have framed it that way, even though that was like his original goal the whole time.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I'm definitely on that side as well. The Cooper and Amelia Brand side. Definitely. I'm just bringing up the opposing views because I think it's interesting too.
Oh, I do
Because
too.
to what
Yeah.
you said, remember they brought up as well where they said nobody would be working on this mission. No one would do this mission if they knew that it was all it was just to their doom and only for future generations. And I think that's true as well. Like if they knew none of their brothers and sisters or mothers or children will survive and is only to start a new population of humans, nobody would have the motivation to go through with this.
Yeah, because like those pioneers, the initial 12, the Lazarus missions, they like they really only found Dr. Mann alive. He's the only survivor from those missions. And you think about the other 11, they essentially, like they even said they had no attachments, so they gave up all of their family, loved ones, and then
What
they were
was what was Matt Damon's name in Oceans? And can we call it him
Linus.
Linus's 12?
Linus is 12.
All
This is
right, go
why
on.
an Ocean's 14 was never made because they would have failed.
Now we know.
Now
All
we
right, but yeah, go
know.
ahead.
But yeah, but yeah, like when you think about it, those 12 were they had no attachments. They had to give up their family and they went on a mission to die. Like they went on a mission thinking they were never going to see anybody again. Think about like we saw the people who landed on somewhat habitable planets. Imagine if you landed on an inhabitable planet. You just got there and
Yeah,
you
like
died.
Miller.
Yeah, yeah. Though why did
That's
she
another
set up
interesting thing
why did
we
she set
forgot
up
to
the
bring up.
beacon?
Huh?
Why did she set up the beacon? Do you think she just saw the water and was like, "Yeah, this works." Turned it on and then the tidal wave came?
I think that was just, if I'm not mistaken, that was just a beacon to set off that she landed or that she made, contact with the planet. And then there had
Oh,
to be another message sent out, like whether it's habitable or not. And they go over it that with the whole time dilation, yeah, she probably died just minutes before they got there.
right.
Even though she landed there like 10 years
Years
ago.
ago. Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy to think about.
That whole time relation thing, I'm still like blown away by that.
It's incredible to think about. And what I was mentioning to you before we started recording was I need to keep on looking up. Like I've been trying to research how does gravity affect time? Like that's something I still need to wrap my mind around because I know how gravity affects space. Like it literally warps space around the planet like depending on the mass of the planet.
Right.
And but yeah, time, like what is time and how is it being bended? How is it being slowed?
Time is
I still need
relative.
to understand that. But but yeah, very, very interesting movie that gets me thinking about all that.
I love the poem that was always used that do not go gentle into that good night.
Yeah, do you know the poem? I'm gonna look it up after this.
I looked it up. I got it in front of
What's the
me.
name of the poem?
It's called Rage Against the Dying of the Light by Dylan Thomas.
I love that. So basically, I guess there's multiple interpretations of the poem, but basically is like keep on fighting the good fight until your last breath. Like give it all you've got until your last breath. That's kind of like
It
the way that I
because he
interpret it.
says the poem itself, it starts with like do not go gentle into that good night. And then the last line of it, the last stanza is like rage, rage against the dying of the light. I took it as don't accept the end as the end. Try to find a way to make a way, even when it seems inevitable.
That's good. I like that. Yeah, I understood it as like fight till the very end.
Yeah, I'm gonna
Fight till the
post it.
very end. Don't give up. Give it all you got. I like that.
I liked it a lot. And I liked when I loved the scene when he wakes up. I felt very I thought that I was gonna have a Captain America First Avenger moment,
Yeah.
like the walls were gonna come down. And he was like, "Where am I?" I didn't first of all, I did not expect that. I thought the film like he was gonna fade into oblivion, like from emerging from that black hole, and then it would just cut to like
Roll
Murphy.
credits? Oh, okay, okay.
It would cut to Murphy, like either Jessica Chastain or like because it started with the documentary, and I thought it was going to end with like her turning off the camera and being like oh this is something he would like or like Topher Grace being something like I'm glad you got this closure and like cut to like people getting on spaceships so they could leave. Like that's how I thought it was going to end from that point. I was like, oh man, I hope that at least like Murphy got off like the planet with Tom and like her family and things like that. But I didn't think it was gonna get. I didn't think we were gonna get the ending that we got, and I'm very happy that we did. I thought it
Yeah.
was the happiest ending with the scenario that the movie was giving us.
Yeah, because up until that point, I think it was when they were in the Tesseract where I thought,
It feels so weird saying that like they were in the Tesseract. I keep thinking of Avengers.
well, the Tesseract, just in case you don't know or the
I
listeners
don't.
don't know, the Tesseract is a four-dimensional cube. So what you see in Avengers and all of Marvel, and if you look up Tesseract on the internet, is going to show you basically a 3D cube with another 3D cube inside of it. And that's also what you see in the Marvel movies. That's supposed to be a representation of what a four-dimensional cube looks like in our 3D world. So just
Oh,
like you would draw like on a flat 2D piece of paper, you could draw a 2D object. So you could just draw a regular square with 4 points, and that'll be 2D. Or you can draw a 3D cube. You could draw multiple sides. Yeah, just like that. So you could draw a 3D shape on a 2D piece of paper.
right.
But this Tesseract is supposed to be our way to visualize what a 4D cube looks like. And that's another thing I have to wrap my head around and keep on researching, but that's the idea. And they tell you that in the movie. They tell you that humanity has reached a point where they've discovered the fifth dimension, and we already know like they had to grab Cooper so that he could talk to Murph and give her the message, blah blah blah. So they put him in a tesseract, and in that tesseract, that's where he was able to see all of time at once.
They
And
made the Tesseract like out of time then, right?
yeah, and then those are questions that we don't even have answers for. Like, how do they do that? You know, how do they plan that? How do they put him in there? Blah blah blah. And those are questions. Those are answers we don't have to those questions. But that's the idea. That's like them pushing as far as they can beyond science and into fiction.
Wow.
But yeah, it's a very, very interesting concept.
I'm like
Um,
Neo. I'm like, whoa,
whoa.
whoa.
What's it? Oh,
I
just a
know,
beautiful poster.
I know kung fu.
Yeah. One thing I did want to bring up because we were talking about the ending. I wanted to ask you, and they even said the line in the movie that no parent should see their child die, right? And we've spoken about
Yep,
this. We've
yep. We
spoken about
did.
this in other episodes.
We have.
But I also wrote down, should a parent ever see their child grow older than them? Because that hurt me to see that. That would
Oh,
hurt me to see
I
my
it's
children older than me.
Tony, there were three times I cried in this movie. Number one was when, we see the 23 years have passed. Number two was when he's telling, like, he's in the Tesseract and he's saying, like, Murph, tell him to stay. Tell him to stay. Like, don't let him go, Murph. Don't
Oh
like
yeah, that hurt.
tell him to
But then
stay.
when he started saying, "Don't let me go,"
Yeah, yeah, don't let me go.
yeah,
I was bawling. And then
yeah,
but those two times paled in comparison to how badly I was crying. Hiccups, sobs, the whole shebang. When he walked in and the joy on her face, like to see
yeah.
him again. I was like, I'm getting emotional right now. I can feel my throat like choking up, but man, that was such an emotional scene. Such an emotional scene.
The line that did it for me was when he asked her, "How did you know I would come back?" And then she said, "It's because you promised."
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep. I started like I was already like tears hadn't fallen yet, and then as soon as he said, "You told them I like to farm," oh, I was it. I was out.
yeah.
I was out of the count.
All right,
I was
turn on
like,
the waterworks.
oh, they were flowing.
Yeah,
They
let it
were
flow.
they were flowing. I had like mocos coming. I was not. I don't want anybody to see me in that state. I'm so glad I saw it by myself.
Yeah,
I was incoherent. I mean, I was paying attention, but man, I was out. That was such a just it was a mixture of like sad cry and happy cry. She looked so happy to see him and he like just taking it all in. Just A plus on the acting. I didn't even feel
yes,
like I was watching a
yes.
movie. I felt like I was experiencing a moment. It was another level of immersion and it was beautiful, but I love that she said that though. Like you shouldn't have to watch like no parent should have to watch their child grow old. It's
No,
it's
she said
almost
die.
that's what it was. That's right.
Yeah, and I was
And
thinking, I just before she said that, I'm glad she said the line, but I immediately
yeah.
thought, should a parent have to see? This is not even possible in the real world, but should a parent have to see their child be older, grow older than them, and on their deathbed? That's crazy.
It is crazy. I think though that it what helped him in this situation was that he was able to see she did live a long and that's what any parent has like for that's what any parent wants for their children to live a long healthy life and to pass surrounded by their loved ones. And so I think that yes, while the situation itself was sad, at least he knew she didn't die. She died at the best way anybody could. Pass of a good old age, surrounded by her loved ones. And she even said, like, I have my children to like accompany me while I go. I don't want you to see me like this.
Yeah, and I feel like she was basically saying, I lived my life. I lived a good life.
Exactly. Like
Now
I've
you have to go on with yours.
exactly.
And of course, he needed the
He needed the
the
closure
closure of,
because
yeah,
they
of seeing her
never
again.
and they never because they never told each other like goodbye. She was upset with him and he never really like they didn't have that. Like he had that with his son. They told each other goodbye and things
Yeah,
like that. They
is
gave
your
each other
truck.
that. Exactly. They gave each other those farewells, but those two left on unresolved terms.
And when he was telling her that, literally, he's like, don't let me leave like this. Come on,
Yeah, don't
let's
let
not
me
leave it
leave
like
like
this.
this.
And it's true, you don't want to go away for so long and like
I have
in the
friends
middle of a
that
fight.
I have friends that have military parents, and one of them, I'm not gonna like name names. I don't want to air out any laundry, but like um I just know it's heart-wrenching when like a military parent has to leave and it ends on a fight. And no matter how long they're gone for, that's always on your mind of like that's how we ended it. Like the first thing I'm going to do when they come back is make
Yeah.
up, and it doesn't like it almost kind of reminds me of Jumanji. Like the fight doesn't even matter anymore. Like the way
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I'm glad he tied that back in. That's a good theme right there. Good
yeah, it's just
callback.
the way that he's like, I thought you were mad at me. It's like I can't even remember what we were fighting about. Like
Yeah. Oh
that
my gosh.
it pales in
Beautiful.
comparison to what uh like to just missing like the person.
That's incredible. I I almost want to leave it there. I don't got much to say after that. If you want to mention anything else, go for it.
I can't think of any other way to end the episode than on that note because I'm already like,
You gotta have another crying session.
oh, hands down. I'm gonna rewatch Jumanji.
That really is the last thing I wanted to mention. That I mean, there's so much that you could break down into little, mini conversations, but I feel like we covered a lot, and I did want to mention those questions of, seeing past, loving past who and what's in front of you, and then just watching your child die or grow older than you. But yeah, just I'm glad you liked the movie.
It's
I'm glad you did.
amazing.
I was
It was
hoping you would.
absolutely amazing. Absolutely. I think the only thing I would want to touch on is the music because the music is really good. And I'll just leave it like at that. Um Christopher, I was reading just in the notes, the IMDb kind of trivia that for the film, uh Christopher Nolan told Hans Zimmer like that it's time to reinvent scores, and uh that um he did the opposite of what Kubrick did for 2001 in that he told Hans Zimmer throw away like drums and strings, we need something new, and said like completely reinvent, like we can't like approach this differently, you can't
Forget
approach this.
everything that you think you know.
Yeah, and he didn't provide Hans Zimmer with a script. He didn't provide him any plot details. He just gave him one page of text that had like more to do with Zimmer's own life story than the plot of the movie.
Really?
Which I wish I had the time to kind of dig into that, but that was what the brief period like paragraph on IMDb said. But he basically told Zimmer like you need to reinvent the score, and when he gave him no specific plot details about this, just gave him like an outline, but it had more to do with Hans Zimmer's story itself than it did with the film. So um I'll just mention like for people and for you, my favorite song. I can't find it specifically yet on the soundtrack like on Spotify, but at 54 minutes 54 seconds, when it's the first scene of them like flying past Saturn, is
Yeah.
absolute beauty in music and in scene, like in scenery.
Yeah.
Absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, it's hard to differentiate them as you're watching it. I'm sure if you hear it in a soundtrack, each will stand out. But
Yeah.
whenever I heard the musical cue coming in, I'm like, oh, here we go.
I kind of wish that
Oh, here we
scene where
go.
he's going into the black hole, in my mind, like, no, all respect to Hans Zimmer, but in my head, I had the Halo soundtrack. Just that dun dun
Ta-da!
dun dun bum bum.
I feel like the
That
dun, 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 that's the reveal of when
yep.
they come out the wormhole
Yeah.
or
Well, yeah,
go
I'm
into the
thinking
black hole.
when they go in, that's the Halo theme. Like it starts. Go.
Yeah.
I want a
Yeah.
whole bum 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 bum.
All right,
I want
Han,
to
you
just
heard it. Go team up with Marty O'Donnell.
yep. Oh, if I could, I would just re-edit famous movie scenes with
with
the
the
Halo
Halo soundtrack.
with the Halo
That's not even
soundtrack
fair
over
at that
it.
point.
The Halo soundtrack is just one of the best pieces of music ever made.
You'll just do like Guile's theme. Have you seen those videos?
Oh yeah,
How
yeah.
Guile's theme goes with everything. You just put how Master Chief's the Halo soundtrack goes with everything.
Yep, that's what I'm gonna
Yeah,
do. There's
yeah.
that in like the anime community that like Dear Maria goes with every anime opening of all time. And like there's a guy on
Oh, the Dear Maria Count Me In.
yeah, yeah. What's that?
That
I
goes with
got
all
your
anime.
yeah, it's like I got your picture, I'm coming with you.
Oh my gosh.
That it
Yeah.
goes with every anime opening, and there's
Yeah.
this guy on TikTok that like that's his mission so far is he's just lining up that song with anime openings and it fits almost every time. Like
I already picture it. Yeah, I picture it.
99% it goes with every anime opening, but I'm gonna do that but with Halo's theme. Goes with every like I'm gonna do it specifically for space scenes. I wonder if I could try that out and just see how it looks.
It'll work.
I'm gonna
Just
do it
like just like
with
the
like
anime.
the
Yes, it'll work.
opening for 2001: A Space Odyssey. I'm gonna do that with the Halo theme.
It'll work. I guarantee it. And I can imagine. Has he used like any slice of life animes? Because I all the animes that have a big action intro, it'll work for. But are the slice of life animes like really slow, or do
Yeah,
they also have big action
he,
packed?
he has a wheel and it'll go by genre, and then from genre he has a sub wheel for animes in that genre. He's
Oh,
hit
all
all the
right, there you go.
wheels of like, slice of life, romance, action, horror, like all of these genres, and it fits. It just whoop, I almost knocked my mic over. It fits.
I believe it. I'm not gonna watch them, but I know it works.
You
I
would not
know.
derive as much enjoyment as I have from watching
Nah,
those videos.
nah. But I'm glad they're out there for people to enjoy. But yeah, is there anything else, Caroline, that you need to mention about this movie that you need to get off your chest?
Do not go gentle into that good night. Rage. Rage against the dying of the
The
light.
dying light.
And listen
Wait, does it
to
say
us,
dying light?
dying of
Oh,
the
dying
light.
of the light. Yeah, yeah.
And listen to us on Spotify or wherever you hear your podcasts. And if you're
Wow, that
hearing us on
transition.
YouTube, give us a like, follow, subscribe. Hit the bell icon if you want more of that good night.
That was a beautiful poem, Caroline. Very beautiful. So I guess we're gonna leave it on that, huh? And
Yeah.
not the special Jumanji connection, the themes
Do I
of
really
how
have?
insignificant fights are over a large span of time and what's important is family and love.
Hey, don't let
We're gonna
that
do.
poem could bend to fit that theme too. Do not go gentle into that good night. Rage, rage against the dying of the light. Don't let your fights stay as fights. Remember, the person is more important than whatever argument you were having.
Agreed. Anyone who has any loved ones that they haven't spoken to in a while, please call them up, text them, anything. Just say, hey, it'll make their day. Or your grandparents, that's another one. If your grandparents are still around, give them a call or text. They'll love it.
I gotta call my abuela. I haven't talked to her.
There you go.
There you go.
All right. That's it for me.
That's it for me. This is a beautiful movie, Tony. I adored it. Thank you so much for recommending that and then for this whole episode in general.
Hey, yeah, thanks for the episode. I'm glad we could talk about it.
I'm glad that
We needed to jump on this, and I'm glad we did.
I'm glad 2001: A Space Odyssey birthed this episode. Like out of something that was kind of oddity came something beautiful.
Oh, so beautiful. And then, yeah, we'll see from there. We'll definitely be covering more Nolan movies. I mean, they're all special. Tenet, I
Whatever.
don't know, but
I'm loving the space ride that we're going on.
all
This
right.
week is the memorial for the astronauts and the school teacher who
Oh
who
yeah.
tragically died on January 28th, 1989. It was due to a failed shuttle launch. I'm sorry, 1986. It's due to a failed shuttle launch that caused it was something to do with like a reaction from the material that the space shuttle was made of and then how it entered the atmosphere. It didn't really even enter space. It exploded as soon as it made contact with a certain part of the atmosphere, and The crew inside of it lost their lives, but it's also because of that incident that we have so many like space shuttle modifications and safety and how we're able to operate in space today. And so a lot of that it has to do with the sacrifices that these astronauts made. So space is beautiful, but space is dangerous. And um, these astronauts and their sacrifices are not forgotten, especially after a movie like this where it talks about how they had to give up their empathy for people of the future and the inventions and the technology that we've been able to discover and invent because of NASA and because of even tragically accidents like this is amazing. But, you know, everything comes at a price.
I thought you were gonna quote part of that movie
I mean, you can.
where Brand and Cooper are talking, and I think Cooper says like, "You don't think nature is evil?" I don't know if he says evil exactly, but
Okay, you say it because
then
that's perfect.
what?
You say that line because that's a perfect line to apply.
Oh yeah, like if nature is evil, but Brand says that no, she thinks it's terrifying and it could be ferocious, but not evil. It's just nature. But
Exactly.
yeah,
Exactly.
but
And
yeah, there it is.
there it is. Thank you, everybody, for listening. And we will speak again next week.
Yeah, thanks for listening, guys. Have a good rest of your day.
Oh,
Bye.